Shigaraki, if you must stop licking them lips and go get some gosh darn chapstick. What's up, guys? Up, and here we are to do a review of chapter 398. We're so close to 400 of My Hero Academia, which is known as Toshinori Yagi Rising Origin. And is it weird? This chapter, now that I've accepted it, now that I won't complain anymore, now that y'all have actually rationalized it for me, I'm rocking with it. I'm rocking with it a lot, and like genuinely rocking with it, not like suppressing any biases. No, I'm genuinely rocking with it. I'm invested. All right, you didn't have me in the first chapter, you didn't have me in the second chapter, but now, as I feel we're reaching the conclusion of this, I'm starting to lean with it, rock with it. So let's not waste any more time and let's hop right into it. Editing me, ready? 3, 2, 1, go. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Fun fact. I have it on me, and I keep it on me at all times. Just like All Might has it on him, and now keeps it on him at all times. Let's not waste any more time, but let's hop right into it. So, we open up, and we do get to see that we are still back in the past. Not for long, because we simply see Toshinori Yagi, the man we know as All Might, chasing after Nana Shimura. Please, take me on as your disciple. This is many, many, many years in the past. And we see that he doesn't have much time to think on the past in reality, because Hercules is send some towards him. And we see that it unlatches. It does the spinny thing as it asks, what's with that flying object? You learn how to read. But we do get to see Hercules is launching off something. Very, very impressive car, by the way. Insanely impressive car. Shout out to David Shield. Is his name David? I think his name is Shield, because Melissa's name is Shield. So I'm pretty sure it is David Shield, but I don't remember. I don't think I've seen the first My Hero Academia movie since it came out, which is wild to think, because that movie is now old. I think that movie, because the fourth movie's coming out, and the movies usually come out biannually, I think. So what? The last My Hero Academia movie I actually sat down and watched was Heroes Rising, and I didn't like that one, and that was years ago. That was when, I think that was 5. Is that 5 years ago? Because I know it was pre the big thing. I think it was even pre the big thing I'm thinking of. So yeah, it's been a hot minute. But obviously this car was made by Mr. Shields, and it's going crazy. And it launches off something towards All Might. And we see this. It literally is like a rocket. It falls apart like a rocket. These 5 pieces unlatch, for this to unlatch, for a tiny little thing to come in. And we see that Toshinori Yagi, All Might, he grabs it out of midair, which is very, very impressive. I know his arm is being guided by the machine, but that's still very, very impressive that he snapped that out of midair and slammed it straight into All For One's gut. Super acid injection, Pinky. See, this isn't even me getting mad at this. It's just like, Ashido's name is really Pinky. That's the name. I mean, I get it. It's supposed to be like just a cute hero name, and obviously like her original name. Wasn't her original name like Alien Queen or something like that? Obviously, that wasn't gonna rock. So Pinky, I don't know. What would you call an acid hero? And she is pink, right? So I guess there really is nothing other than Pinky. But once again, I am loving it. Now that I'm fully invested, I am loving the callbacks to everybody. Everybody's getting referenced. Rikido's getting referenced, Midoriya is obviously getting referenced. Ashido's getting referenced. Aravity gets referenced later on in this chapter. Ingenium gets referenced. I think the only people we haven't seen, we know Sero got referenced. The only students we have not seen, I don't think we've seen Mineta. I don't think we've seen Bakugo. I don't think we've seen Shoji. Technically, you could argue Shoji appears later on in this chapter. I don't think, I'm trying to remember all the Class 1A. I don't think Froppy's gotten a mention, but once again, Froppy's abilities kind of overlap, and I don't see All Might extending his tongue in any particular way, shape, or form. So I think a lot of major students and a lot of minor students got their due with this All Might arm, and I think that's nice. Once again, fully acknowledging the thematic storytelling behind that. Chef's kiss. Some of my favorite writing that we've had for a while. Like I've loved a lot of the stuff that we've gotten up to this point, but chef's kiss, beautiful stuff here. And we see that All Might does this with purpose, because he injects it, and it's super acid injection, Pinky. And he says, even though you're constantly rewinding, it continues to corrode you from the inside out. All Might, who's the trash now? I mean, one of you is literally wearing a junkie metal suit. But then again, shoutouts to whatever All For One's wearing. That stuff is super humanly attached to him. But that is very, very interesting that All Might points out that the rewinding, despite working in his favor, quote unquote, is still actually tearing him apart. It is trying to erase him from existence. And it's something that is supposed to happen. Once again, I'm not exactly 100% sure of the pace of this rewind, though. Because, like, remember, he went from crippled, decrepit, 200-year-old something man to his prime in, like, 5 seconds. Remember that. He went from, oh no, I can barely breathe, to, aha, I'm handsome again. Like, he literally got hit with, it was literally like the handsome Squidward thing. He got smacked in the door. And then he came out handsome Squidward like 5 seconds later. So I'm very impressed that it's taking him this long to really revert that long. Once again, I get it. It's for dramatic timing, so I'm not necessarily too mad at it. I prefer we get the most out of this fight than we not get the most out of this fight, but it's still very interesting to me that it's taken this long. But it is still being acknowledged that, yes, every single second that All For One wastes here, he's drawing himself closer and closer and closer to his inevitable end. Because once again, if he is seemingly enough, based on what Hori has established, he could change this next week. But at least from what Hori has established, if All Might succeeds in stalling All For One here, and he does get wiped out of existence, All For One's done. Permanently this time, hopefully. Even with the All For One vestige inside Shigaraki and the real All For One, in terms of the quirk, this All For One is the one that's trying to go over to Shigaraki and bring back out the control of All For One, the quirk / the vestige. But if he stays here and he gets corroded, absolutely, and he gets rewinded out of existence, All For One may still exist technically inside Shigaraki. You may get like, then I guess you probably get like a final conflict. I do believe that one way or another, since I don't think Midori is actually going to execute Shigaraki, despite that one panel of him talking to Gran Torino. I need you to go reread that. Midori never actually acknowledged taking out Shigaraki as a real thing worth saving him. It's just Gran Torino says that. Since I don't think that's going to happen, I believe the culmination of this battle will be in the Mindscape. And I could see as Midoriya just barely reaches out to Shigaraki, All For One's vestige appears, tries to drag him back, but then Shigaraki destroys it, reaches out, takes Midoriya's hand. They have the most immaculate dap up this side of the Mississippi, shake the entire planet, and then everything's good. Then again, because the thing is, right, one is gone. I'm thinking of the 3 major villains of the League of Villains next to their hero counterparts. Toga's gone. It isn't exactly confirmed, but it pretty much is confirmed. She's cut. She's used up all of her life juice to restore Uraraka's life juice through the transfusion. So she's cooked. Dabi is, I think, now just an arm? I forget, does he even have limbs anymore? He has no legs. I think he may have like a nub and an arm and a head. That's about it. That's all that's left of Dabi. So we're 1 KO, or not KO. KO is a knockout. A PKO, a permanent knockout. We have 1 permanent knockout. We have a disabling, like a permanent disabling. I don't think Dabi can generate that much heat with so little body left. And now the only one that's left up in the air is Shigaraki. Is Shigaraki going to get got? I think legally, not legally, I think for the safety of the world he should get got, just in case he ever rebounds, but whatever. Probably not. So I'm going to assume that he's going to be saved one way or another, and All For One's only chance to genuinely achieve what he desires, that nice, young, new body, is to get there. But considering he's stuck in this endless cycle with All Might, it's probably not going to happen. But we see that All Might, once again, he's trying to get in there. He's trying to just keep rooting himself in All For One's mind endlessly. He's trying to live in All For... Technically, he already is when you think about it. But he's trying to live in All For One's mind rent-free. Never paying a single payment of rent. He's just trying to stay in there permanently. So when he asks, who's the trash now? I'm pretty sure All Might knows for a fact he's still fodder. He should be getting fodderized. But All For One's so bonkers about him. It's weird to put it that way, but it's true. All For One is so bonkers about him that despite the fact that he is literally being wiped from existence, none of that matters. It doesn't matter that he could literally leave All Might. He knows where All Might is, grab Shigaraki, take over Shigaraki, and then go back and take care of All Might. It doesn't matter. All that matters in the here and now for All For One is making sure that All Might gets got now. He's not gonna wait till tomorrow, the day after, now, and it's gonna be his downfall. Once again, I'd be genuinely shocked if All Might ends up now at this point. I thought All Might would just end up being a sacrifice and he'd be used for Midoriya's character development, but at this point, considering how long we're sticking to this, I do genuinely believe that All Might, he's probably gonna go, but it's not gonna. All for One's not gonna make it out of this. He's gonna get wiped from existence because look what gets noticed by All Might on the next page. Oh wait, no, not the next page. We flashback here, but we go back in time, back to reality, and we see All Might says, "Please allow me to help you." And Nana, obviously, she is humoring him though. You can definitely tell, despite her walking away or floating away in this case, she's definitely humoring him. Nana, despite not being as powerful as All Might, we know she was more than powerful enough to leap massive distances anyway. So if she really wanted to be away from Toshi Noriyagi, because he wasn't All Might yet, she easily could have, but she's still engaging with him. She does see something in him. And you see, she says, "No chance. You don't even have a quirk. And stop following me." All Might says, "I'm begging you." And she tells him, "Go take that pipe and protect your loved ones." And this was something that was theorized for a long time. I think maybe it was confirmed earlier in the manga. I don't exactly remember, but it is confirmed here. All Might really got it out the mud. AKA, he came from nowhere. As he confirms, "I don't have any. My family was slain a long time ago." So, All Might is an orphan. That was something a lot of people had talked about, because notably, there was never necessarily a mention of any background, but All Might was already relatively up there. As he says in the last chapter, he's already pushing, plus 55 plus? So a lot of his family even being alive is a rarity at that point. And obviously, it's not All Might's story, so he didn't necessarily get to see much of his family background. But in the outright confirmation that All Might's family has been gone, and has been gone for a long time, is very, very nice. I think it is, once again, the more details we get about All Might, the better. And we see that Nana says, "So was mine. I don't have time to help you seek revenge." So, Nana reveals that her family got too. Which, I think actually makes it's sad, her abandoning her child. I feel bad saying it like that, but putting her child up for adoption or leaving him behind, I think ultimately her not having a family, her not having a group of people to rely on that she's directly related to, that's probably why she made that decision at all. Because I feel like if Nana, well, who knows? Once again, it was a very rough circumstance for Nana. There was no right answer. Shigaraki was going to be born one way or another. And I don't mean Tomura, I mean Shigaraki. He was going to be born. But essentially, that lack of familial connection and the ability to move on without it, she probably believed her own son had that. And to be fair, it seems like he did, but she never considered the ramifications of what it would be like to grow up without a family. Considering she did it, she turned out fine. More than fine in her mind. She ended up being the next vessel of One for All, an extremely powerful quirk, on top of her own innate ability of float. So, she probably thought, if I can do it, my own flesh and blood can do it. But, of course, that led to drastic ramifications. Once again, more characterization, more background for Nana is nice. One of the things that a lot of people were hoping for, and admittedly, I'm not holding out much hope for now at this point, considering All Might's literally about to get, not All Might, All for One is literally about to get got by himself, ironically enough. A lot of people were hoping for a flashback arc where we got to see extensive paths of the previous One for All users, because they all seem like they could be their own interesting characters. They all live in very unique time frames with very unique circumstances and very unique powers that they would have had from the start of their lives. So it would have been interesting to see some of that. But since we don't get to get it, little morsels like this, understanding that Nana didn't have a family, and that likely influenced how she saw families and the necessity of them, so that led to her giving up her son, and that ended up leading to Shigaraki farther down the line. Very, very interesting stuff. And we see that All Might is just honest with her. He says, I just can't take it anymore. In this world, criminals get rewarded for their actions, and a victim's sorrow grows into blind rage. It's a spiral of everlasting tragedies. Okay, so what's your point? I want to make a world, a place where everyone can live with a smile. And for that, the world needs a symbol. A symbol of peace. So, this is the origin point of All Might's destructive nature. So, we know that All Might succeeds from this point on. We do cut. Actually, no, we don't cut back just yet, but we do know that All Might succeeds from this point. He did become a symbol of peace. But ultimately, in creating a world where these victims were those who were lost to shadow, who were lost to the pain and agony that befell them, based on the actions of those stronger than them, despite creating a world that was pushing the darkness into shadow, that was leading the dark away and giving everyone this sense of hope, unintentionally, this mindset of taking on that burden, becoming a symbol, it started here. And as we know, that was flawed. And it's great. Once again, the reason I love All Might, and even aspects of Midoriya's writing, it's mainly All Might, I will admit, but that's just because, I don't know, I never necessarily rocked with Midoriya 100%, but I still like the character a lot more than I used to. I do like how, by pure technicality, they aren't wrong. The heroic thing to do would be to risk your life. The heroic thing to do would become a symbol of peace. The right thing to do is to push the villains back into the shadows, for they believe that that's the only safe place when dealing with a symbol of peace. But unfortunately, the lack of immortality, the lack of permanence of a symbol, the reason why All Might, from here on, was destined to lead to a world of destruction, was simply for the fact that the symbol was not a symbol. It was a man. And that man could not be everywhere at once. That man could not save everyone. And that man could lose. That man could lose to the one thing that everybody loses to: death, mortality. No matter what, the symbol of peace was never going to be eternal. And thusly, this world that you see in the background between them, this world of destruction, of extreme degrees, of course. I have no idea what this quirk even is. It was always destined to return. Because a symbol that is a man will never last forever. They may be remembered fondly, remembered poorly, remembered in whatever way, shape, or form, but memories cannot do everything. Memories will not stop those who only feared what was physically there to stop them before. And we see that All Might, just doubling down on his ideology, says eventually they'll build new houses and things will go back to the way they were. Except they won't. Those tenants will live in fear. That darkness will forever lurk in their hearts, never giving them peace. And we see that Nana understands this. It's likely that she still carries the pain. She still carries that darkness, that fear from the loss of her own parents. It's likely she was in a position very similar to All Might back when she was first becoming a hero and back when she was first getting ready to receive One for All. But Nana wonders and asks, isn't that why you're pursuing power? That's your goal? And All Might responds, everyone's too busy protecting the ones they love. That's why I'm the one who has to do it. I'm quirkless, born without a role. So, once again, the origin of the self-destruction, the origin of the agony that would follow after years upon years of hard work, the origin of all that came from a quirkless boy who lost everything. And just like years later, as the chapter goes on to parallel, a quirkless boy who had nothing and was about to lose everything was given hope. And it's very, very interesting. It's very, very interesting that All Might interprets being quirkless and likely being alone as something to be, something to be used, a vessel. That's how he sees himself. And it's very similar. This All Might, I'm not sure how old he is here. It seems like he may still be in junior high because he's not going to UA yet. Is that a fan? I'm not sure if that's a fandom thing or did he actually go to UA? I don't remember. I consistently see fandom art of him in UA with like Endeavor and stuff like that, but I don't actually remember if he actually went to UA. But even still, this is a very similar mindset to what Midoriya had, specifically heavily in the First War and Vigilante. The idea that Midoriya didn't really matter. Midoriya couldn't save the world. what was meant to save the world, what he was meant to be, was a vessel. Because he was quirkless. He didn't have a role. But once he was given One for All, once he was given the power to make a difference, given a power to make change, then finally he had value. Finally, he had a role he could play. Finally, he could incorporate himself into the world. And you can see how that destructive mindset reflects across both of them and existed for the longest time in both of their youths. Of course, we don't get much of adult Midoriya. If anything, it's just that first opening chapter. But you can see that mindset reflects across both of them. I think that's nice. It ties both of them even further. They weren't just quirkless young men, but they were quirkless young men with dreams. Yet that dream, the fuel to that dream, was based on the emptiness they felt by being quirkless in a quirk-filled world, being powerless in a world full of power. The ideals and the willingness and the desire to do more, but with the inability to do anything more. Very, very nice. I've always heard it talked about generally, but when you really think about it, All Might and Midoriya both definitely do parallel Captain America a lot. A scrawny boy wanting to fight and protect for more than he's worth. I think that's neat. I wonder if that's purposeful by Horikoshi. I know, then again, Captain America is a lot more famous than Zuko from Avatar: The Last Airbender. But I specifically remember someone had mentioned to Hori, oh, did you base the Todoroki family off of Zuko? Or did you base specifically Shoto off of Zuko? The scars on the same side, I do believe. Family drama, hates the dad, all that good stuff. Evil sibling, all that. And Hori's I have no idea what that is. So that was just straight up pure coincidence. So maybe this is another pure coincidence thing. But All Might, all the American symbolization with All Might, the fact that he went and trained in America, it feels like the Captain America stuff is drizzled in there. I know one of Hori's biggest inspirations, I think his favorite hero is Spider-Man, but All Might and by proxy Midoriya feel very, very Captain America to me. However, speaking of the beginning of All Might and Midoriya, we go back to the place where it all began. And we see that All Might is launched through some buildings. Bro gets sent out, pops off a building, and boop! Very, very impressive once again. Pro has a broken... Everything has to be broken. Everything has to be unbelievably broken. But if you don't recognize this, I didn't recognize it at first either. I saw people talking about it. This is the same spot from all that time ago, way back in chapter 1, when Midoriya first saw the villain. I believe this is the very same bridge that large villain was moving up over before Mount Lady came in. But we see he skips just a little bit further. He slams to just another building. He lands, rolls, and slams into a fence. And then we see that the police notice, All for One's now even closer to UA. But look, he's taking a detour. He's chasing after All Might. Once again, All Might, he's succeeding, despite how much All for One gasses himself up, and despite how smart, how inhumanely smart All for One appeared to be throughout the narrative. Ultimately, and I'll admit, I'll take this now as just a character flaw and a deeper part of his writing. I just thought it was stupid, but then again, I think I was looking at All for One too simply. He's still a man. Sure, he may have dreams of grandeur. Sure, he may want to be a demon lord, a transcendent, quirk-fueled creature that transcends all of creation. A transcendent being that transcends. But in the end, he's still a man. A man who in his own mind was wrong, insulted, beaten down, and bullied by something lesser than him. Something that wasn't even born with a quirk. How dare it be the one to strike him down? How dare it be the one to leave him with nightmares years upon years after the event? How dare it stand up to him now that it has lost the one thing that made it relevant, the one thing that made it worth something in All for One's mind? How dare All Might fight him without a quirk? So thusly, seeing All for One chase All Might, yes. Is it stupid? Is it dumb? Should All for One know better? Yes, 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 and yes. But regardless, it makes sense. Because that's all for One wants. More than any body, more than any immortality. He wants to get back at the man who took it all away from him. Let's see if he can. But we do get to see. Now, Masa's obviously, he's going through it. Tsugachi-kun, he is going through the feels right now as he realizes that All Might's plan, even if it may end in his end, it's working. It's dragging All for One away. And now Masa's slowly coming to realize the fact that All Might was right in one sense, but ultimately All Might still may end up going. Now Masa may end up losing one of his closest friends to the darkness of the world. And we see, All for One, he comes lunging in. Not that fast though, once again I think he's too lost in the sauce right now, but we see that the armor starts telling All Might some fun facts. It says, fractured ribs, whole body damaged, respiratory system malfunctioning. So, remember, one of the big things that All for One did to All Might all those years ago was take out a chunk of his lungs and a chunk of his stomach. So, All Might's respiratory system malfunctioning means that inadvertently, likely through this hit, All for One reopened the old wound. That was, I believe, on his right side. I think it was right around here. You can't see it, but right beneath the ribs on the right side. So ultimately, All Might is in extreme danger. Remember, this straight up limited his hero time while he still had One for All, not to talk of anything else. But of course, fighting All for One is bringing back memories. He says, I was young and full of dreams, just like him. And he begins to flash back to the man who inspired him to go beyond, plus ultra. The man we knew as All Might could not live his life any other way. And we see that in spite of everything, he thinks back to what Stain told him. The fact that in the end, he's not just the one with all the power, but the one who inspired All Might, the inspiration, on the same roof where he first met the boy that inspired him. He rises up. Whether it be through the assistance of these backburners or anything else, he arises. And All for One, driven by nothing but rage, hatred, malice, stares at him in disgust. Look at those eyes. Look at them big old eyes. There's nothing but malice, hatred behind them. And we see that All Might notices something. He's a bit younger. Has he noticed yet? I need to keep him occupied. He cannot be allowed to start thinking rationally again. To remove the pinky acid from his body, he had to consistently injure himself with quirks. So the more damage he takes, the faster he's forced to rewind. Very interesting. I don't know. Rewind is one of the mechanics that... I mean, I get it. It's allowed. But then again, have I actually liked anything that's gone with Rewind? The only thing I ended up liking about Rewind was the fact that it made the quirk erasing Splagooters. That was it. I'm still, to this day, despite me understanding the thematic reasoning behind it, still to this day, I don't really like Infinite 100% Midoriya. I get the narrative purpose it serves, I get how it feeds into both of the characters, I get all that, but just based on how Rewind was established, I don't like that. Honestly, based on how much... I know a lot of Mirio fans ain't gonna like it, but I still don't like how how Mirio ended up getting brought back into the narrative through Eri spontaneously being able to control Rewind better. I don't like that, and he hasn't really ended up doing much except stalling and shaking his booty meat. And honestly, as cool in concept as a young All for One versus All Might fight is, and as much as I've come to accept it, I still kind of don't like it. I still would have preferred if these two had just stepped down, had stepped into new roles, instead of trying to be the big bad all over again, or trying to step into the limelight and be heroes. I wish these two had moved on, had grown up, because essentially this is nothing more than a childish spat between two old men. All Might knows that he shouldn't stand a chance, and All for One knows that there are more things that he should be doing, more important things that would guarantee his longevity. But in the end, these two are fighting each other simply because it's in their nature, which is good, but I still don't like how Rewind facilitates that. But regardless, All Might realize that, okay, damage is what's needed to really do this. And we see that in the face of what could be literally called death itself, All Might simply laughs. I'm not gonna go crazy in a laugh like that. I can't do that in the knockoff All Might voice. My apologies. But he just starts losing it. You see, All for One begins to mutate himself with quirks, but All Might just starts to laugh, thinking of the long, long, long path he's walked down to get here. All these different moments. And then in a last-ditch effort, with Hercules barely managing to chase along, shout out to Hercules for being so fast, he says, "Send them en masse, Hercules." And the car launches off everything it can muster. I bet it's nothing but a set of wheels right now. And we see that All Might in this mania has forgotten and is now beginning to remember how good it feels to help everyone. And we see some of that innocent light, that light that was lost many, many, many years ago, that pure and simple desire to throw himself away for the sake of others. It returns to him, if only for an instant. You can tell by the returning of that white light to his eyes. And we see All for One watches, because I suppose he wants to beat All Might at his strongest. All for One watches as everything latches on. Do your best, guys. We can do it, right? We can win. A gravity thruster, ingenium, maximum output. And this is why I say it feels something like a Shoji reference. And honestly, it's a Coda reference in of itself, too. I'm assuming this will play into the Coda stuff because of the bird. Multiple arms will play into the Shoji stuff based on that. And obviously, he verbally mentions, "Please, I'm almost done recording. Why must you bark now? What is out there?" We're going to keep going. I'm so close to the end of this chapter. But we see that he claims and draws forth a gravity thruster for movement, an ingenium for speed, and that maximum output. The man is essentially dying for all intents and purposes. He's not really there anymore, in the sense that his bones, his body is damaged beyond repair. But as long as he can be there, as long as he can be that symbol, that thing that will drag All for One away from his true goal, he believes that he can win this fight. And we cut away to a world that's close but so far. And the vestige of All Might within realizes they're fighting. And we see Midoriya Izuku bursting with energy, bursting with power, strikes back against the monster, the beast that was born of the king of evil, the demon lord, that simply licks its lips in satisfaction. And the battle of one for all, the heroes, and all for one, the villains, is reflected across time. As the present battles it out for the fate of the world, so does the past. As All for One prepares for likely a final strike, and All Might prepares for one final bout. Young Midoriya, All Might's determination reaches Deku. It's hard to tell that, though. Like, he doesn't seem to notice, but the vestige inside him notices, so it works. And chapter 398 ends. No break next week, a much longer chapter this time, which is good. I'm happy Hori's able to rest a little bit. I love this chapter. Well, I'm talking about why it's worthy without declaring it worthy, but yes, the chapter is definitely worthy. And for reasoning why, the chapter is worthy. Now that I fully accepted it, this fight's just heat. I like the fight. I like that All Might's getting creative. I still love the character references to major characters, minor characters, characters of all variety. I love the art. The art is very, very beautiful. I still feel, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just because I'm not used to seeing young All Might. Young All Might still looks a little bit weird. He still looks a tiny bit off. But even with that, regardless of that, the battle itself being drawn back to the place where it all began, getting a full understanding and background of both All Might and Nana. On top of that, seeing All Might's final stand and the restoration of light to the young man's, or the elder man's eyes as the hope of the future draws forth. I'm very, very excited. Oh, even as Ojiro's tail. Look at that. Super duper excited to see where this goes. And I can't wait to see what next chapter has to hold. This is a solid, at least in my opinion, 10 out of 10 chapter. However, That's what I think. Please tell me what you guys think in the comment section down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe. And make sure the little notification bell so you do not miss out on any videos that come to the channel. Also, I do have a Patreon down below where you can support me as low as one a month. You get things like exclusive videos, early content, and more. So you can also now become a member of the channel for as low as $3 a month to get the same perks and more. Some of those perks include the live reaction to this very chapter. Now, thank you guys so much for watching once again, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is Dabi the Pencil, writing off. I'd like to give a thank you to our $3 members, Recliner Plays and Red Wolf 4765. I'd like to give a very big thank you to our $5 patrons, Sean Gray, Red Wolf 4765, Midnight Gemlord, Kevin, Demix LND, and Art Goon. I'd like to give another super big thank you to our $10 patrons, Robbie Uchiha, Joaquin, and Idemokami. And a final very big thank you to our $25 member, Alex Ice Rose.